Now, I ain't trying to say that's some kind of conspiracy. Maybe some other shit was going on, or this, that, and the third. But brother, he had that conversation with K. Slade 2 weeks before he was murdered.
We have to talk about Gene Deal, the man who spent years in Diddy's shadow, who suddenly decided the hip-hop world had heard enough lies and half-truths. Deal walked straight into the digital spotlight, unflinching, and dropped a claim that ricocheted across the culture. Jay-Z, not just Diddy, played a central role in orchestrating the end of Shakur. Think about that for a second. Not some faceless crew or drive-by nobodies, but Jay-Z himself, fresh-faced, suited up, allegedly plotting in darkened backrooms to cement East Coast power. In Deal's telling, Jay-Z never just wanted the crown, he wanted a vacuum. A world scrubbed clean of anyone who threatened Bad Boy's supremacy. And at the top of that list, a single West Coast revolutionary, Shakur.
And that was to destroy East Coast rap. And what I mean by that, and I know people gonna be like, yo, Gene is out of his mind and everything like that. Check this out, brother.
So, what does that mean for everything we thought we knew about the East Coast, West Coast drama? We've been spoon-fed the story for decades. Shakur as the unpredictable firebrand, Diddy as the slick operator, Suge Knight hulking in the background, all of them orbiting the violence of the 90s. But in Gene Deal's version, Jay-Z is no longer the Brooklyn businessman who just played chess while everyone else brawled in the parking lot. In this narrative, Jay-Z's hatred for Shakur isn't just professional rivalry, it's existential, a fear that one man could upend the empire in progress. And so, according to Deal, he teams up with Diddy, and the two begin to operate as what some insiders have called the Unholy Alliance. A pair of men obsessed with power, ready to burn the old order down and erase anyone standing in their way. It sounds like the setup to a Hollywood thriller. But sources close to the situation insist that these weren't just heated, late-night arguments or spilled Hennessy over a disagreement. What we're hearing are stories about secret meetings, industry dinners that started late and ran later, where only the real gatekeepers were invited. Nobody took minutes, nobody brought phones. And the word from one former Rockefeller affiliate is that everyone knew the rules. You speak, you stay. These meetings, some say, happened in nondescript hotels or private homes, shielded from prying eyes and tabloid reporters, with only a few trusted lieutenants hovering by the door. And in those rooms, whispers grew into plans. Some claim deals were struck that would decide not just who won the charts, but who got to survive.
Because him and Diddy was giving that deal, we gotta keep these East Coast rappers down. Because down South rappers, Cash Money, No Limit, Ludacris and them, they was taking little money and bringing back more money and making more money.
Why Shakur? That's the question that won't leave us. It's easy to forget now, after years of lionization, just how dangerous Shakur was to the old guard. He was loud, he was smart, and he was on the verge of escaping Suge Knight's grasp, and Diddy and Jay-Z, we're told, knew a free Shakur would be an unmanageable problem for everyone. The stakes were higher than just record sales or magazine covers. The industry, Deal insists, was about to flip forever, unless something or someone intervened. This story gets even more sinister when we factor in recent allegations. Federal cases against Diddy, a rolling wave of lawsuits, and the sudden willingness of former insiders to start naming names. People who would have gone to the grave without talking suddenly have a lot to say. Maybe they're spooked by the prospect of subpoenas, or maybe, as the walls close in on the old kings, loyalty has become a luxury no one can afford. And then, just as the conspiracy threads start to look too tangled to follow, comes the claim that blows the whole narrative apart. Shakur didn't just fall victim to a drive-by. According to a chorus of bodyguards, ex-Panthers, and at least one self-appointed private investigator, the Las Vegas shooting was never meant to end in a hospital morgue. No, what we're told is that Shakur was warned, maybe by a Panther contact, maybe by someone from Suge Knight's own circle, maybe by a double agent inside Bad Boy itself. The result? A plan more daring than anything anyone in the music industry had ever seen, fake the whole thing, body double and all, and disappear. The core of the conspiracy is that the shooting was staged just well enough to fool the public, but orchestrated by hands who had something far bigger in mind. And who could pull strings that long, with that much reach? You don't have to look further than Diddy and Jay-Z if you believe the rumors.
These 3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
The evidence, if you want to call it that, gets stranger the longer you look. Fans have been picking apart the inconsistencies for years. 14 shots fired, but only a single fragment grazes Suge Knight. Shakur, a man who'd once been shot and survived, suddenly forgets his bulletproof vest on the one night he really needed it. The autopsy photo is off, the weight on the coroner's report doesn't match. The body gets cremated by a mortician who immediately retires and vanishes. Even Shakur's mother left the world with the enigmatic phrase, her son had chose to leave quietly. All of this, of course, is just fuel for the theorists. The most devoted ones will point you to the posthumous albums, 7 of them and counting, and the cryptic messages scattered throughout Machiavelli's work. Rearrange the letters, they say, and you get "Am alive, Kate." There's no shortage of rabbit holes, but the most tantalizing one winds its way south to Cuba. Here's where the whispers pick up steam. Former bodyguard Michael Nice claims he worked as part of the security detail that ferried Shakur from hospital to airport, from airport to private jet, then on to the Caribbean. He swore to TMZ, "Why you think nobody has been arrested if they said they the one that ended Shakur? Because Shakur not gone. If he was, they'd be arresting those dudes for it." Nice went so far as to describe the operation, the Black Panther connection, the hush money, the hospital bribes, the night flight to Barbados, and the final clandestine trip to Havana. And just when Nice was about to reveal what he called proof, he turned up gone himself, leaving conspiracy nuts and casual listeners alike to ask, who really wanted him silent?
Chaotic. It's hard to actually figure out what's what, but it's becoming clearer. It's becoming clearer and clearer, but
The Cuba rumor isn't just the stuff of YouTube comment sections. There have been sightings, or what people swear are sightings, for decades. A man in his 40s, supposedly Shakur, photographed with a fan in Belize. Locals in Old Havana telling anyone who'll listen that they've seen the rapper walking around, somewhere smoking a Cuban cigar on an island, as Suge Knight himself once mused. Even supposed images of Shakur and Beyonce together have bounced around the internet, setting off firestorms of debate. It's wild, but the deeper you go, the harder it gets to dismiss every last sighting as just wishful thinking or viral trolling. The connection to Cuba, if you trace the family lines, runs deeper than anyone first realized. Shakur's aunt, Asada Shakur, has been in exile there for decades, wanted by the FBI and living under Castro's protection since the 80s. If you were Shakur and you needed a safe haven, there's only one island in the world that could both protect and vanish you at the same time. And if you were one of the masterminds behind this whole scheme, Diddy, Jay-Z, the people at the absolute top of the industry food chain, how much would you pay? How many strings would you pull to make sure nobody ever talked? While this legend keeps growing, the world outside keeps spinning. Diddy faces a pile of lawsuits and criminal charges that sound like the plot of a Martin Scorsese film. Racketeering, trafficking, coercion, you name it. Former employees and ex-lovers lining up to spill secrets. The court of public opinion is out for blood, and for the first time in years, it looks like the old moguls might finally have to answer for the shadows they've cast. Jay-Z, meanwhile, is fighting desperately to distance himself from Diddy, especially as his own name has now been dragged into allegations that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. The kind that don't just stain a reputation, but nuke it from orbit.
This morning, rap mogul Jay-Z is denying allegations he assaulted a 13-year-old girl alongside rapper Sean Diddy Combs. That civil lawsuit filed against Combs in October was amended Sunday to include Jay-Z. The accuser, identified only as Jane Doe, says she was assaulted by both men.
And yet, the ties between Diddy and Jay-Z are impossible to erase. They go back decades to a time when both men were climbing out of the New York streets, building their empires brick by brick. They collaborated, they partied, they bailed each other out of jams, both literal and legal, each rising higher because the other was close at hand. Even when the industry shifted, even as Forbes started tracking rap billionaires and corporate partnerships replaced old school beefs, the two remained entwined, attending parties, toasting to success, locking arms at every A-list function. All the while, the rumors never faded, only evolved. It was all a little too perfect, a little too protected, but now the fortress is starting to crack. Lawsuits swirl around both men, with Diddy facing the most severe, the kind that come with decades of stories and sealed courtrooms. Jay-Z, dragged into a suit that alleges something no one in the industry wants to be associated with, is fighting back with everything he's got. He calls it blackmail. He calls it desperation. He's throwing lawyers at the problem like they're confetti at a victory parade. And yet, the headlines won't go away. Not when federal agencies are raiding Diddy's properties in Los Angeles and Miami, and certainly not when every single move is being dissected by a public that's starting to realize just how much has been hidden for how long.
Jay-Z got his whooped by his sister-in-law on camera. What's her name? Solange. You got it. The feds ain't step in and do nothing. The feds don't care about you getting your whooped.
Back in the 90s, the streets were full of stories, the kind of stories that start with a punch at a casino and end with blood on the strip. Suge Knight and Diddy at war, Biggie and Shakur caught in the crossfire, LA gang leaders like Keefe admitting in memoirs and taped confessions that they were in the car the night Shakur vanished. Keefe account is almost matter-of-fact, a meeting with Diddy, a promise of $1 million to handle a problem, an offer to wipe their out quick. The authorities, of course, have been happy to keep these stories in cold case limbo. Nobody wanted to go after celebrities with pockets this deep, especially when half the direct witnesses have since met their own mysterious fate. So here we are, watching as the giants of hip-hop's golden age scramble for cover. For decades, it's been the worst kept secret in Compton and the Bronx that the game was never fair. But now, as federal warrants land on Diddy's doorstep, as Keefe faces the prospect of spending his final years behind bars, and as Jay-Z's legal team battles to stop the bleeding, we're left to wonder what would happen if Shakur himself finally broke his silence. What if he's been waiting all these years, somewhere in Havana or in the shadows of New Jersey, for the moment when the last gatekeepers fall and the world is finally ready to hear what he has to say?
So they was placed to destroy the East Coast rap. And then along came a somebody. They was about to bring East Coast rap back. And there's nothing they could do about it. And this kid was finna put East Coast.
If Shakur really did slip away that night in Vegas, the biggest winners weren't just the men in the car or the crew who ran distraction. We have to look at what happened next. The incredible surge of power, wealth, and influence that swept over Jay-Z and Diddy in the wake of Shakur's supposed exit. As the shockwaves from that night rippled out, suddenly the entire landscape shifted. The air was different, the board reset, with their fiercest rivals silenced, whether by fate or by their own design. These two men soared higher than anyone thought possible. Diddy, with his sparkling beverage-soaked label and reality TV deals, moved from mogul to myth, while Jay-Z went from street corner hustler to billion-dollar kingpin with the kind of cultural clout politicians envy. We watched a pair of street-bred outsiders become the undisputed gatekeepers of American music and celebrity, and every ounce of their success has been shadowed by that one unsolved night.
Did not want East Coast rappers to get big. They were suppressing all new artists that was coming out of New York. Jay and Diddy was doing that.
Insiders have called it the Gatekeeper Alliance, and the whispers have only grown louder as the years pass. Diddy and Jay-Z, two sharks circling the same pool, didn't just conquer hip-hop, they rewrote the rules, changing who got in and who got paid. Artists who didn't play ball with the new regime suddenly found themselves boxed out of tours, dropped from labels, or blackballed by a phone call. Talents like Shine, who went down for a club shooting that Diddy walked away from, never got another real shot. Craig Mack, once the future of Bad Boy, vanished into obscurity. Even long-running acts like the Lox had to literally wrestle their way out of toxic contracts. No one rose in the industry unless the new gatekeepers gave the nod, and nobody crossed them twice. We've heard the same refrain from behind closed doors. They control everything. If you're not with them, you're done. The control ran deeper than just music. Endorsement deals, magazine covers, A-list collaborations, nothing happened without the silent blessing of the alliance. When Jay-Z launched Roc Nation, it wasn't just another record label, it was a fortress. Suddenly, he was managing athletes, running halftime shows, shaping the sound of entire generations, and deciding who was allowed to even touch a microphone. Meanwhile, Diddy parlayed Bad Boy into a multi-headed empire. Clothing lines, spirits, TV, even mainstream business partnerships. Every move, every handshake, every red carpet, it all pointed back to the same circle. Some old-school executives still swear that Jay-Z and Diddy held a blacklist, and anyone who threatened the status quo found their calls unanswered and their projects suddenly unfundable. It wasn't about business, it was about absolute power.
And they was getting a lot of money to make albums and records. When they had guys down south that these labels was paying $250,000, $300,000 on record deals, and these guys was bringing back platinum albums and everything like that. So what they had to do was they had to keep New York rapping.
Look at the names who disappeared without warning. Massey, forced into early retirement. Cassie, gone after years in Diddy's orbit. Countless promising acts. Dream, Danity Kane, even more recent names like Machine Gun Kelly. All hit a wall they couldn't climb. Rumor has it even Drake's rise had to pass through a final, private meeting before it was allowed to go mainstream. We might never get confirmation from the big players themselves, but when you hear the same story from road managers, booking agents, even retired bodyguards, you start to wonder. And all of it rests on the shoulders of two men who, more than anyone, benefited from the disappearance of hip-hop's most radical voice. Just when the smoke seemed to clear, the rumors began to slither back in. A new generation of fans, unsatisfied with the official story, started digging up evidence from the most unlikely places. Enter the infamous photo, Shakur, alive and smiling in Cuba, standing beside none other than Beyonce. Yes, that Beyonce. The queen herself, arm in arm with a man supposedly gone for more than 20 years. Was it really him? Was it just a lookalike or some wild Photoshop? Even if you don't buy it, you have to admit the timing is suspicious. Was this picture a message to the world, a wink from the underground, or just the world's most elaborate hoax?
What's up, what's up? This is Beyonce on the red carpet with one of the hottest female artists out here, Miss Aaliyah. How you doing, girl?
Baby? It's so good to see you.
And then comes the question nobody wants to say out loud. If Beyonce is in the photo, is she just an innocent bystander? Or was she part of something bigger? Did Jay-Z, in a move worthy of Machiavelli, tie his own legacy to hers as an insurance policy, knowing no one would ever think to question her? Some gossip forums have gone so far as to wonder if she was used as a shield to protect Jay-Z from suspicion, to keep the illusion of innocence alive while the real power games played out in boardrooms and on private jets. Others wonder if Beyonce herself ever suspected the truth, or if she too was swept up in the current of history. Either way, the web of connections keeps tightening, and every new leak adds another knot. Meanwhile, the word on the street is that Shakur has not been sitting still all these years. For decades, there have been whispers that he's been gathering not just stories, but evidence. Former Panthers in exile have allegedly hinted at a file documents recordings, proof that could upend the official story forever. If Shakur has been watching from afar, waiting for the right moment, is it possible that he's preparing a comeback not with an album, but with a kind of proof that could shatter the entire industry? Imagine a press conference in Havana, a grainy video message, a sudden return that flips every assumption we've ever had about the game. There is another layer here that the old gatekeepers have to dread. Diddy, for so long untouchable, now faces a relentless wave of charges. Coercion, trafficking, blackmail, racketeering. The headlines only get darker by the week. Jay-Z, for his part, is fighting like a man who sees the storm coming, throwing lawyers and settlements at every accusation, denying all ties to the old scandals. But the damage is already showing. The alliance that once looked unbreakable is now starting to fray, and no one knows how many secrets will spill if even one domino falls. Is it all finally catching up to them? Did they think they could hold the doors forever?
And we may actually see one of the biggest divorces in Hollywood is because Jay-Z is up next to be exposed.
As more stories surface, old associates keep talking. Diddy's former bodyguard is far from the only one. Even Suge Knight, calling in from his cell, has hinted that the world doesn't know half of what really happened in those years, and every time another bodyguard or ex-manager opens up, the myth of the untouchable mogul erodes a little more. We're left to wonder what would happen if Shakur finally dropped the mother of all exposés, bringing proof of betrayal, secret meetings, and the names of everyone involved in the greatest hip-hop vanishing act of all time.
He was that thing, and I was big man. That was the extent of our beef.
Picture it, Jay-Z, Diddy, and maybe even Beyonce, all suddenly standing in the harsh light of the truth. Would the industry survive? Or would it collapse under the weight of decades of secrets and lies? The gatekeepers have always believed they were writing the future. But what if the past isn't finished with them yet? There's something undeniably chilling about the thought, the notion that somewhere, in a Havana apartment or a high-rise in Jersey, Shakur is watching it all play out, waiting for the moment to strike. So as Diddy faces his reckoning and Jay-Z battles to keep his empire afloat, we have to ask, is this the end of the old order? Has the game finally run out for hip-hop's kingmakers? If Shakur steps out of the shadows with evidence in hand, will it all come crashing down? Not just for two men, but for the entire culture built on their reign. Drop your wildest theories in the comments and tell us, do you think the truth will ever see the light of day? Keep your eyes open, because in this game, nothing is ever really over. Thanks for riding with us. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and don't believe everything you're told.